course from learning. Often, but not always, probably does. Okay, so it's fairly relevant to the assessment of brain impairment. There has been this controversy about its relevance for day-to-day functioning as an adult, occupational success, and so forth. And then clearly, people are successful in their post-educational, occupational, professional life for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with intelligence, like how good-looking you are, and how tall you are, and where you start in life, how successful your parents were, what kind of connections you had, what kind of friendship connections you have, what fraternity or sorority you belong to, all kinds of things that shape your occupational success, right? And then again, we'll talk about more next week. There's kind of increasing evidence for sort of moderate to high correlations with daily functioning, even for normal older adults. Okay, so this is a question that I ask you guys. And the short answer is nobody knows. Psychologists have talked for a long time about intelligence as a common factor of intelligence, usually with a small case G. I think for generalized intelligence. And this is the idea that people vary on this one dimension, and knowing this one dimension will tell you most of what you want to know, maybe almost everything that you want to know about people's success in school anyway. That sounds so much louder than people at home. You ever listen to these on the digital recordings?
They accept everything.
You hear like paper rustling and people's pens scratching, and you can hear people whispering in the back of the room. People have divided this up in a lot of different ways. One that I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with from your own educational and test-taking days is that, if nothing else, in the achievement in IQ testing world, people frequently divide up verbal intelligence and mathematical intelligence. And so that's why you get a verbal score and a quantitative score and GRE and so forth. And more recently, we've thrown in this kind of analytical score thing, so we'll see whether people can actually string sentences together in meaningful paragraphs and argue things and so forth. Actually does seem to be at least somewhat independent of verbal abilities as measured by others. And I think it's sort of, it makes a certain sense to most of us, I think, on the day-to-day common sense level. That you all know people that are really good at math who are not so good at verbal-based things, and vice versa, with the people who are very good at all kinds of verbal classroom performance and just can't get the math stuff down at all. And people who are good at both, and people who are good at neither, of course. We'll kind of be belaboring this for a while, but in the Gero world, one of the things that was suggested fairly early on, the Ford and Cattell paper from the 60s, is this notion of crystallized and fluid intelligence. Which has had a string of sort of different kinds of meanings, and you keep seeing these different components of this arising in different ways. One of the things that Wexler noticed as he was developing the first adult intelligence scales is that some of the subtests of the intelligence scale as he developed it didn't differ very much across age groups. and some of them did. And he very cleverly called these hold and don't hold tests. And some of them held with A's and some of them didn't. Hold that thought for a minute. I want to do just a little bit of a digression. There's an interesting little side note about the way we handle different kinds of potential group differences and the way the tests got developed. And it's actually sort of interesting that in the 20s and 30s, as these tests were being developed, that people were already sort of kind of trying to minimize gender differences. When it came to gender, the test developers mostly tried to come up with questions and tests that didn't give you huge differences between men and women. And then with age, they noticed this hold and don't hold stuff. But they actually did early on, coming up with standardized scores and standardized IQ scores, is that they recalibrated scores for the different age groups. So the initial reaction was that although people were sort of willing to believe that people got dumber as they got older, they didn't think that it should be to the extent that it was showing up in these tests, and they thought it would go get in the way of other things they wanted to look at. And so rather than not in the raw scores, but in calculating IQ and the standardized scores that you come up with on the way of calculating IQ, you compared older adults to the mean of other older adults in the age category rather than to the mean of young people. It's kind of another way of having potential differences. And then with ethnic differences, we just took them seriously. Rather than either trying to eliminate them or recalibrate them. Not a good idea. Intelligence tests have been misused in social policies of different kinds. A pretty dicey history, including in the big waves of European immigration in the early 20th century. We tried to screen out immigrants from undesirable countries by giving them IQ tests in English and determining that they didn't do very well. We determined that they were developmentally disabled and shipped them back because they were retarded. IQ tests were used in somewhat similar ways to screen people out of certain kinds of jobs for a long time, out of union membership that was tied to certain kinds of jobs, often either selectively giving tests so that only some people got these in, or if you were the right sort of person and or the relative of a current union member, you got the answers to study. But the other people didn't. And then, for a variety of social and historical reasons, a lot of the early developers of some of these tests were heavily involved in eugenics movements, including proposals to sterilize people with low scores on intelligence tests and other undesirable elements of populations. Actually, one of the reasons, for a while, up until I think somewhere in the 70s, IQ tests were used to track people in school systems into special classes for people with developmental disabilities, average classes, and advanced classes. And one of the reasons that they got away from that is that both because it turned out that the special classes were disproportionately minority, and when this came up as a court case, the court case is actually kind of interesting to read. I used it once when I was teaching psychological systems. One of the things that was decisive for the judge was that it became clear in court testimony that both the research psychologists and the test publishers had known for decades that this was a problem and were aware that there was no evidence that, while there was fairly decent evidence that IQ tests predicted academic performance for white kids, there was no evidence on black kids and Latino kids and Asian kids. We didn't know one way or the other, but this wasn't any evidence. But they were being used to classify them as though it worked in exactly the same way. And it was in part the fact that although they had known this for decades, nobody had done the studies. They hadn't put up the money to find out whether the test was